What's good? Welcome back to Agitator. Today we have a very special guest, the man with the crooked smile, the the man who almost needs no introduction in this circle of the internet, but you're blowing up from the Matt and Shane endorsement, and um next step is probably what, Rogan. So
I would hope, yeah. We'll
that's
see.
where we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there, bro. That Matt and Shane shit was crazy. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. No, that
Uh
blew my mind. That really surprised me. Yeah.
first heard about you through Rare Candy though. The boys. Then
Yeah.
you've been on that show quite a bit. Enjoy listening to every episode. Your story is very where your life story ain't similar to mine, but there's a whole lot of intersection there with the whole addiction shit and uh being being somebody who used to be a scumbag and isn't really trying to be a scumbag anymore.
Yeah.
So a lot of uh a lot of things endeared me to your story. And then this book really jumped out because in a I'm a writer, and
Yeah.
but I'm in the like sort of that indie lit world, I guess, where a lot of people with these kind of stories, they well, like auto fiction is a big thing in the writing world right now. But your approach with this was kind of uh I know it didn't start this way, but like this book being a sort of how do we here's my experience on the streets, here's my experience with drugs, here's my experience doing this shit and the prison shit and everything. And through this experience, what does somebody from that world actually think should change about shit, and not just a
Yeah.
um not just, it's not just a memoir, like just full on. uh so I was fascinated by that approach to it. Was how are you feeling about it? By the way, this is Jared Klickstein.
Yeah.
The
Hey,
longest
hey
introduction in
everybody.
the world.
No, no, I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable, and the path has been very strange. I mean, it started out just as a memoir. Um, I wrote this memoir, and then I fortunately was able to get there was an agent in particular that found it interesting and decided to represent me. And we went like a year or two just pitching it to publishers, and they were like, why, who are you, basically? Like, why would we, you're not famous, so why would we publish your memoir? And that, that made sense to me. I get it. I kind of had this vision like, oh, it's a cool story, so, Random House will just publish it. And of course, that's not what happened. So I kind of had to rebrand, first and then I rewrote it as like super progressive, and I was like, that'll work. And that did not work. I even had a publisher say like, if you were like gay or something, this could maybe work. Like they're like, are you gay? Or, and I was like, I'm not gay. And they're like, they were
You
kind of like,
never you never sucked a dick for crack, or just a
surprisingly, I swear to God, I haven't. And I'm not like, whatever. I know people that have, and I no judgment. Just I happen to not do that. And so they were like, he was being pretty candid with me, and he was just like, it's just not a good time for you, right now, if you're not like gay or something. So, and I'm just being honest. That's what he said to me. So then I hooked up with Michael Schellenberger through just like DMs on Twitter, and he was like, why don't you rebrand this as like a policy book and sort of add some like recommendations of how we could get out of this, get out of these issues. And then that worked. And like and actually like a conservative publishing house picked it up, even though the book is not like particularly conservative. Um,
Actually, not at all. Yeah, I was
yeah.
surprised to read because I mean I've heard you talk on a lot of your ideas of policies and whatever, and just your story, and you don't strike me as, even though uh you had that interview on Fox News, you are in the kind of circles that I guess, I mean, we're both kind of um in these con not really conservative, but like the you've been on the right wing podcast circuit, sort of, and
Yeah.
um, but I didn't get the sense that you were, yeah, you just felt like somebody who was real and had his own lived experience based ideas. But the book did surprise me to see that like reading a lot of the idea, a lot of the verbiage, which I like that you don't approach with any sort of like any sort of cushion of like going around the bush trying to be like, no, I know this is a trigger word for some people or whatever, but just, if it sounds like a progressive or even sort of socialist kind of word, you just use it. I mean, assistance itself is one of those words that's like, oh, just got here this guy goes talking about assistance and shit.
Yeah.
And uh but you just go in on just like, well, here's who I am, here's the shit that I've done, the shit, some of the shit I've been through, so you know where this is coming from, and then here's some ideas, just based on that. And I think it's a great idea for a book. I think it's something that, if we're gonna keep talking about drug issues and bitching about homelessness, then there needs to be some ideas thrown out there about what the fuck to do about it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people do have ideas, but our approach for so many, like a couple decades wasn't working perfectly. And there's like this tendency on the left to say like, well, it didn't work perfectly, so let's do the exact opposite. And like in terms of crime, in terms of addiction, and in terms of homelessness, and that's an odd tendency, So I'm not. And then people are obviously accusing me of being like a fascist, and like they're like the book is promoting just put everyone in prison, and it's like that's like just read the book, It's like I don't say that at all, but I've been on Fox News, and I've Schellenberger wrote the forward, and that, by the way, that's not Schellenberger's proposals either, but people have lumped me into this box, and that's fine, but I just keep telling, people, I write articles and stuff, and people comment like, fuck this guy or whatever. And I just say, like, just read the book. I'll send it to you for free. Just read it. I'm telling you, that's not what I'm saying in the book, so I don't know. Then again, I have like a PR firm that's like a small PR firm based in Tennessee, and they're great, and they're working, they're trying to work, but they're like, this is a conservative book. So they're pitching it to like AM radio stations in like Louisiana and stuff. And it's just like, and it's like, okay, that's fine. That's a fine approach. But, I've kind of taken marketing under my own, I've just kind of taken over my own marketing, and it's, I got on Matt and Shane. So like, it's been a very interesting experience of like attempting to promote the book, which I've never promoted anything.
Who would you think needs to read it most?
Um, I mean, everybody, if you've like ever, I mean, everybody in America is like at this point probably related to someone that's has a drug problem. I can't, or knows somebody or has worked with somebody. Um, so I think it would be great for everyone to read it. And I'm not saying like I'm not trying to like uh sound self-important or anything, but it's just like everyone should kind of understand the mechanics of addiction within the brain of a drug addict. But I think anyone involved in like the government or policymakers or people that are running for local office. I mean, these people. This is a really big issue. I mean, in city like where I live, it's a really big issue. I mean, it's really like affecting the quality of life for every person that lives within 20 a radius of 20 miles of where I live, more than anywhere in America, maybe besides like maybe Philadelphia or Los Angeles. Um, it's odd though, because like everyone, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and like everyone that has any sort of power in determining homeless and addiction policy, they went to school, they have like a master's degree in social work or something, and it's like just listen to a guy that was homeless. They have this like real cockiness of like we can't listen to a crackhead, like we have to listen to someone that went to Harvard, and I think
Yeah.
that's going to change soon. I mean, so I don't know. They're starting to listen. Even some politicians that I don't have a lot, or I didn't have a lot of respect for, and disagree highly with their policies, are starting to listen to people with, the quote unquote lived experience of actually being homeless and on drugs.
I
Yeah,
think that I experience a whole lot of that as well, being in well, just in being in like art scenes. You got
yeah,
people who don't come from any kind of background like that. They might have a recreational relationship with drugs and shit, but they don't like have they weren't ever beating anybody's skull open with a pipe, you know? So it's like there's this perception of lower class equals some kind of uh lower potential
yeah,
where it's just, well, we need to come up with something somewhere to put them. It's like they don't want to say, well, we should just wipe them off the face of the earth, basically. But they're also like, well, I don't trust that they're going to have any kind of self agency to be able to even even just have a conversation with them. Like, what? Okay, so what do you think? Since this is what you're going through, so that's I would actually agree. I do know that it sounds self-important to just say something like that, but I would agree that I think it's something everybody needs to read. I think it gets to the root of a lot of other problems too, because the solution to the homelessness and addiction problem in America is sort of an ultimate solution to a whole lot of any other issues. It's like a domino effect because it's so major and it's so human and it's so rooted in like a lot of the problems with all the systems we have in place. You know, I think your stance on prison, um, I I really agree with, and I think there's an assumed sort of prison reform that kind of goes into that, not just
yeah,
because like you say like, and I want you to speak on that too, but like you uh you're not just like, well, let's just lock them all up, um,
yeah,
but the freedom to run around committing crimes, no, like just hey, free reign because you're homeless, and the fuck are we gonna do about that? Is not helping anybody.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what
Well, yeah,
is your take on prison there?
yeah. I live in California, where prison reform has been a hot topic for years, and Gavin Newsom is spoken on prison reform, and everyone's like pushing for prison reform, but it never really happened. And then COVID hit, and then they just like let everyone out of prison. And that's I don't know. I don't consider that reform. I mean, that's just kind of like an irresponsible, easy shortcut to, you can't just let people that commit violent crime out of prison, willy-nilly, in my opinion. No, I haven't been to prison, but I've been to jail, because when I went to jail in Los Angeles, actually the prisons were so full that they weren't putting people in prison. They were, if you unless it was like a very violent crime, they would just give you a sentence in the county jail. And the county jail was considered worse than prison. Um, and Now, personally, I had a great time, and I had a lot of fun, and I loved it. But that's because I went from sleeping like on cardboard outside to sleeping in a bed in jail. So I enjoyed it. It was an upgrade for me. But for a lot of people, it's not an upgrade, and it's a very, and if you have a tendency to feel hopeless in your life, and not accepted by maybe your family or your community, you're going to look for acceptance in jail and prison. And you're probably going to, find acceptance by some people that are going to set you on a path to lead a worse life than a better life. So yeah, it's really bad for a lot of people. A lot of people go in there, and they join, gangs, and that just becomes their identity. And criminality becomes their complete identity. And then they get stamped with this criminal background, and then they really have no choice but to continue to commit crimes. And we like, instead of like having this like gradual off ramp to like reforming this system, we just like threw it away. And that's not the way you should go about this. I'm really about hope, and I'm really about establishing foundations for people to live a self-sufficient, content life. And when I was in jail, they had school. You go to school, and I did go to school, and but it was like anger management, and it was like there actually was the intro to construction class that was probably pretty useful. But um, if you end up in prison or jail, I mean, I think we should figure out a way to like teach you how to do something for when you get out, you're like fed straight into like a union or like a construction job or like I mean, like we just need to examine like the labor market and see like, well, where are we gonna, we need I think 300,000 linemen from Gen Z in order to like maintain the power grid of this country. And Gen Z is like doing TikToks and like trying to like
Yeah.
be, so like, which is actually, listen, that's lucrative as well. But like someone's gonna have to climb a fucking pole at some point and like, maintain the power grid. And so I just think like why aren't prisons just giant like schools basically? And I know that sounds like really shit libby of me, but I think it
Well,
could really
I think
work.
the shit libs would disagree a little bit because the prison reform that I've heard a lot of people want is prisons are basically this loophole for slavery to stay in existence where we got, we're gonna make you work. And I kind of but I agree with you 100%. It's like what the fuck do you want them to do in there?
Yeah.
And I don't think we should be keeping people in there for extended periods of time, exploiting the use of slave labor.
Of
Around
course.
where I'm
Yeah.
from, we got a farm, we got a prison farm. And
Yeah.
so like I don't think we should just keep them locked up for good, just running that farm, on some free labor type shit.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, I mean, what are you going to do for the care of that person's future and you know the hope at a rehabilitation and putting them on a more solid foundation when they get out and wanting them to get out? What do you want them to do, sit in a cage and just thinking about all they have to think about at that moment and not educating any further, not like, or just fighting for their lives in there, whatever else is going on, get bored, pissing people off.
Yeah.
You got to.
No, I agree. I mean, I think, in California they don't do that. They don't have like the free labor stuff with the prisons. But I know obviously in other states they do, and it's, that's I'm not advocating for that at all. It's more like, okay, you're a drug, I've been in there with like 18, 19-year olds that are like they're at a real turning point where they're like, okay, I can, and they choose the wrong turn. I mean, they go in there and they're like, this is where you become a man. Like prison's where you become a man, and you get your stars and stripes or whatever, and join a gang. But it's like if we just took these kids, and I'm not saying put them on a farm where we just make them do slave labor, but it's like, hey, how about we like send them to it's like in the prison there's like a welding school and they all learn how to weld. And then it's like when you get out of here, you have a probation officer that's going to line you up. Where, there's an infrastructure bill in this country that Biden passed for like $2 trillion. I'm sure most of it is just laundered and stolen, but let's pretend that it was actually being used to build the infrastructure of this country. We could like shoot them right into that and just be like, hey, here's a $45 an hour job. As long as you just don't fuck up, you can maintain your 45. Because a lot of people get out. I've seen this so many times, and it's happened to me where it's like you get out and it's like, okay, I can like really struggle to like get a job at fast food. And like that's your option. That's like your single option. But it's like if we taught these people a skill and a path to self-sufficiency, it gives you a sense of like, I don't have to keep living the way I was living. I could live this prosperous life. Um and we just, instead, like in California, you just kind of sit there and you like make food with your friends and you just fuck around and you learn about how to do identity theft, and like it's just like you just like hone your skill of whatever fucked up skill you want to hone, and it's just really not productive. And so that's all I'm saying. And then I'm saying with these homeless drug addicts, I don't think unless they're like committing like crazy violent crimes, like I don't want to send them to jail of any sort, or prison. I mean, I'd really like to, if you're homeless and you're on fentanyl, and you are like kind of being a menace to society like I was, like I just think you should get scooped up and it's like, hey, we're putting you here, free housing, you can't get high, and we're gonna like, what are you good at? Like, let's give you a test and see like what's where you're, are you really into art? Are you really, I mean, you know, that may not be the best path to live. That might be a good path to that might be a good path to live a content life, but it may not be a foundation for. But hey, maybe we could teach you how to do some, like paint at Trader Joe's or something. I don't know, it's anything, but it's just like, hey, what are you good at? Do you have the mind to maybe be good at some kind of like IT job? Like we're going to need a lot of like cybersecurity, IT, and um, just anything. Like let's feed these people into like careers, not, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I have a friend who learned to shape eyeglasses in I don't think that's where he learned it because his dad did it as well, but he honed some skills of like shaping eyeglasses lenses in prison. And now
Yeah.
that's what he does is manage a uh like a optician office or whatever you call it. And
Yeah.
so like things like that, and that friend, that's the first case of anything like that I had ever heard. When he told me that, I was like, oh shit, I have a lot of friends that went to prison, family members that went to prison, don't have any kind of, I didn't know that thing actually existed. I thought that was just a dream. Like,
Yeah.
but that's kind of evidence that like that helps. Like something like that in place actually does help somebody to get out, get established somewhere, and do something better with your life.
Yeah.
Because it is just a it is just a cycle. It is just, I have a cousin who started going to prison when he was, or not prison, started getting locked up when he was 15, and then is on like his final stint in prison. Like there ain't no getting out anymore. It's just
Yeah.
his whole life. And now he's in his which is now into his 40s. So like almost going on 30 years of just get in, come out, go in, because frankly, I mean, he's just not good at anything and doesn't know anything else.
Yeah.
And
And probably has no
whereas
resume, no history of like, he can't get an apartment, has no credit score. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it sets you up for this like perpetual life of failure, you
I
know.
could barely get into an apartment recently, like I
I
was
know.
like, all the shit you got, all the hoops you got to jump through, every single thing. Shit as simple as like signing my kid up for school. I'm like crossing my fingers, like, please let the like you feel like they're not gonna give it to you. And that's just when
Yeah.
you're like, I mean, I'm just working. I'm just trying to, you know, get a place, put my kid in school. Like, I ain't doing
Yeah.
nothing. And even somebody like that, it's like, fuck, is this gonna work? Is this gonna go through? So yeah,
Yeah.
somebody who just the a lot of times it does come down to that simple thing of documentation. Um, I've met homeless people with jobs, and that shit confused me when I first saw that shit. Where I'm like, so you're working for the city, like doing like doing road work and shit. Why are you sleeping next to the spaghetti warehouse? It's like, I ain't got different chain of events. I lost my ID. I got out on the streets, don't have anywhere to get posted up. And then the whole process of getting into a home or like some kind of shelter or whatever doesn't really coincide with my work schedule. And I need to work. So that it's just like this back and forth of uh, bureaucracy, basically, of just like shit that does not, there's no system in place that logistically works to allow you to just simply have an opportunity to get on your feet.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, it's really, I mean, here, if you want to get an apartment, I mean, you need 6 or 7 grand, like just to get into an apartment. I mean, security deposit first month. And this is like this new kick that I'm sort of on is like, so there's a lot of renters protection going on where I live. There's like, obviously there's rent control, there's eviction sort of protections, there, and now they're going to vote on something in Berkeley where it's like to ban the background checks of prospective renters. And but I work in property management right now, and like all these renter protection things actually like sometimes can really hurt renters because now landlords are like, okay, I can't really evict this person. I can't raise the rent. I can't. They're like, I'm just going to pick like I'm just basically going to become like racist, first of all. And second of all, if you like, you have tattoos or you look like this or you look like that, like you're not getting a fucking apartment here. Like you need to look like you're someone that's first of all only going to be here temporarily. And second of all, you have to look like you work in tech or you have a white collar job and or maybe you have a co-signer or like a parent that makes a lot of money. I mean, it's just like if you're just like a guy that doesn't have a ton of money to show like, hey, I'm not gonna fuck you. I have, 80 grand in my bank account. It's gonna be really tough for you to get an apartment. But I live in a place with the most renter protection in the country. Yet I've lived here before and I've lived in my car before while working here. I just couldn't get a spot. Um, Now at the same time I was on drugs, but yeah, it creates this really weird situation where like we're the most progressive on renter protections, and at the same time, it's like the hardest place to get an apartment, you know? So
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense because yeah, I mean, like you said, as a landlord, that's a lot of that's putting a whole lot on the landlord to just be like, hey, these are the new rules, go by them, and thinking that just like, you're doing a great job in this book of painting a picture that like addicts are human, that landlord is human. The fuck you think he's gonna do to like try you can't just the answer is not more arbitrary bureaucracy where somebody's gonna still have to try and make their money off of that. You're
yeah.
not, you don't want somebody coming in who's gonna fuck up the place. um
Well, here people blame the landlord. So there's a lot of graffiti where I live that's like kill landlords, and it's like, what is a landlord? Like I know a landlord that's homeless because he rented his house. He rented like a duplex, half of his duplex to someone, and they just didn't pay rent for 3 years. And uh he could no longer afford the mortgage on the duplex. So now he like lives on someone's couch and the guy still lives in his house.
that's
It's
insane.
like, so like,
That's
I don't know, what is a landlord? It's just like, well, it's a person. And people here like they want to get rid of landlords, and it's like, okay, well then where will we live? And it's like, okay, we will live in government housing. And I don't know if any of these are all people that have never stepped foot into like the tower,
into
like a
like a
tower or
section 8
anything.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
I've
Oh, or
smoked a lot of
yeah.
crack and I've smoked a ton of crack in the stairwells of projects. Uh, that's where we'll all live, and your housing will could depend on maybe what you say on Twitter or maybe what your uh vaccine schedule looks like, or like, I mean, like that's what I don't know. It's unbelievable that people are like, let's kill the landlords, and it's like, well, who do you think's going to replace them? It's going to be the government. And
Yeah. Yeah.
depending on how you feel about the government, you may not enjoy the parameters that will be set for you to enjoy, maintain that housing.
That's why I appreciate that you're um actually this bleeding heart, hopeful optimist who believes in the human spirit, because a lot of true answers to things are what is the human root of this problem? What is you spend a lot of time in the early part of the book establishing um trauma and thing and crisis of identity that led to addictions in you and your parents, uh not as excuse but like as explanation, so that to get to a point of like where this is how we got here and this is not a unique um story. This is a very relatable story where this is how a lot of addicts get to where they are. There's something that opened up this void for this drug to fill that just creates this chain effect of this chain reaction of all these different scenarios that when you spell it out, it's more of um you start getting like reading it. I started getting a lot more ideas about how things could be better because you're telling it in just a real raw way, no excuses, just explanation where you go, oh okay, well if this is the root of the problem, um then we can get to some solutions. and it's not uh easy solutions. It's like, because it's not a lot of bureaucratic solutions. It's more like in the home is where a lot of things, it seems, need to take place. You brought up in the early on the whole thing about the family mill, which was also hilarious. Uh,
Yeah.
you you were told that your great grandparents were, well, tell the story about the
Yeah,
mill.
on my father's side, they come from Ukraine, and that my dad told me that I said, what did they do? What did they do in Ukraine? And they said they operated a mill, like a flour mill. So then I went to in college. I it was kind of like this OxyContin boom, and I was like selling a lot of OxyContin. I all of a sudden made a lot of money for like a 19-year-old. I had like 5 grand, and I decided to go to Europe. And I bought a ticket to Europe and was gonna like do a little backpacking trip. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going all the way to Europe, I might as well go to Ukraine and visit, the Klicksteins or the Klicksteins or what, however different people in my family pronounce it differently. But
Okay,
I want
okay,
to go see the
good. I'm
mill.
glad
Yeah.
it's in the family too, because
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I say Klickstein, but a lot of people in my family say Klickstein. But so yeah, I was like, I got to go see the mill, the family mill. So I called my dad and I was like, hey, I bought a ticket to Europe. I think I'm going to go to Ukraine and I want to see the family mill. I want to, see where I come from. And he like didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, remember you told me that our grandparents ran a mill? And he was like, no, they lived in like they were like cavemen. They lived in like a village and they had rocks and they would grind flour with the two rocks. And then like the Cossacks came and like killed the whole family except like your great grandfather and his brother were like out of town or something, or like in town when it happened. And then they escaped and they went to England and then they took a boat to Boston. And and they left the rocks, the rocks got left behind or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of like pictured like, okay, I come from like this cool family that owned this business in Ukraine, and it turned out that we were just like cavemen. Like most people. I mean, most people come from, peasant cavemen. And that's okay. I mean, that's where most people come from.
yeah,
And
hey, I'm Czechoslovakian, so just just gutter trash. Just
yeah,
in.
but it's just crazy that you come to like in America, you can like a caveman from Czechoslovakia or Ukraine can like somehow become like something. It's just, I don't know. It's so weird that like this country just like say, hate it if you will, but like it's wild. You could just come here and like, like I don't know. I'm gonna assume Jeff Bezos, descends from some caveman from fucking I don't know, Slovakia or something. I don't know. Who knows? But like,
Looks like it might be some sort of Slovakia. Just the
yeah,
shape of that melon. It's
yeah,
got
I
to be
know.
some kind of Slovakia.
Now I know his parents like lent him 300 grand or whatever, but it's like I don't know. It's just like I should really have done research on this. I don't. Maybe he comes from royalty. I don't know. Who knows? But like, there's the fact is like we don't know. He really could have just come from some cave somewhere. His great grandfather, and you can
Well,
just do something here.
I think the idea of that, like not knowing, not this whole explanation of, well, this is where you come from, like this is what you're destined to or whatever. I think the idea of the American, well, that's the American dream. You come here and you can make whatever of yourself that you want.
Yeah,
Uh, I think that's a very critical dream to reignite, because that possibility, that hope, is a lot of what is lacking in the homeless communities and drug addicts. Like that's, I mean, I strictly started doing drugs because I was bored and didn't think anything fucking mattered. Didn't think I was going to make it out of my small town. Didn't think I was ever going to not be poor. I watched my dad break his back and like bust his ass, never be around because he was always working. And we had nothing to show for it. Crackheads were breaking into our house, fucking gang fights in our yard, cousins going to prison, everything, nothing, I didn't think anything was gonna change. So it was like, fuck it. A lot of shit was just on just on some fuck it shit. And
Yeah.
so I know at least, I mean, at least personally, I've always felt like, in the way that I try to um push down to my kids, like the what I hope for them is to create an environment where they do see possibility and like encourage skills in them, encourage like interests, and try and be like, there is a possibility to go this route. Like this is something you're interested in. Let's pursue this. And there is an established some sense of hope and not just uh uh I don't know, but yeah, I think that's is that kind of like the familial identity that you were struggling with that you bring up in the beginning of the book is like sort of this sense of, well, if this is all we come from, then what is the point? Like do you think that identity, some kind of familial identity plays a part um in the addict's sort of psyche?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. I mean, I think in general, like the absence of hope is it's like a it's like kindling for addiction to just flare up and, spread like wildfire. And um that personally, yeah, like my parents are heroin addicts, so I was like, okay, you're already a piece of shit, but maybe that was just kind of like a one-off, like with your parents. Maybe beyond that there's like great success and all that, and then there really isn't. I mean, so yeah, I use that as an excuse to sort of just dive right into drugs. But and I don't talk about this in the book, but I went to UC Santa Cruz, which is like a very liberal arts school, and freshman year 2007 they showed us they kind of did this mandatory thing where like they made my whole dorm go to the cafeteria, and they showed us that Al Gore movie about global warming. I forget what it was called. God, what was that movie called? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about though, that
I
Al
I
Gore
know what
movie?
you're talking about.
Yeah.
I cannot think of Al Gore without just thinking Man Bear Pig. Like
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
is everything just everything else leaves my brain whenever his
Yeah.
name is brought up. But I
So
remember the documentary you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah. So I remember specifically, like I went to college and I was pretty optimistic, and I was like, because my whole family was like retarded, and they were like, just go to college and you'll be a millionaire. That's how it works or whatever. So and that's kind of what I thought too. So and then we watched that Al Gore movie about global warming, which was like Miami will be underwater by 2014. And I flipped the fuck out and I almost cried. And all my friends, all my dorm mates were like, what is going on? Like, we're all going to die. This country's going to be underwater. And then we were like, what are we, well, at least me, I was like, why would I try in school? Like, what's, because I was going to like major in something important or whatever. And then I'm not kidding. Like, I saw that movie and I was like, we're all going to be dead in 10 years. So, like, I'm just going to fuck around. And just pass my classes basically and pick the easiest major I can find. And then drugs came around. I was like, of course I'm gonna do drugs. We're all gonna be dead. And there was just no hope. I was just like, and obviously that movie was wrong. And but it goes beyond that movie. Like we live in a country where like, my parents were like not scholastic and not, they were probably intelligent to some extent, but like they were just like average people that went into blue collar professions, and they owned a home before they were 30. And that's hope. The fact that so we live in a country now where like I have friends that with their wives make, two or three hundred thousand dollars and like can't buy a house. Um, which is crazy that like I'm 35 and like most of my friends don't not only don't own a house, but they're not even married or don't even have a kid. And just like, now, listen, I live in the most expensive part of America. That definitely they could definitely go buy a house 100 miles away. But um, so that's kind of where I was getting to with the book, where it's like people call me a far right conservative and stuff, and it's like if you read the book, it's like, hey, maybe we should stop like going to war for like 20
Yeah.
years in a country that no one's ever heard of. Like maybe we should stop sending $300 billion to a fucking comedian turned president in Ukraine, where I come from, by the way, like where my people come from. Like, maybe we should stop doing that kind of shit. And I'm not, and I talk about like, hey, think about this when you go to the polls I mean, when you go to vote, and I'm not saying Trump is the answer. I'm not saying Biden is the answer. I mean, obviously Biden's not the answer. In my opinion, I just think he's not really giving a lot of hope economically for anybody. And Trump, but just to be honest, probably won't either. This is like we need to like if the president of Mexico was recently interviewed and about fentanyl, and they were saying like, don't you feel guilty about all the fentanyl that comes from your country and goes into America and destroys America? And he's like, well, the fentanyl comes from here, meaning that there's a ton of fentanyl here, but people aren't doing fentanyl here. Why are people not doing fentanyl here? And he said, well, it's probably because we have a sense of culture and a sense of identity, and we have very, really strong family values, and we're spiritual people, and I think that's correct. We
Yeah.
have like we're like getting hammered on all fronts in America. Whether you're rich or poor, you're just like absence of culture and family and spirituality, and this is playing a role in the loss of hope for many Americans across race and religion and income bracket. So yeah,
No, and a lot of people scoff at that because it's, I don't know, idealism is just where well, America has become a culture of just nihilism, and
yeah,
that it's one of those things that now when you say it, you sort of psyoped into feeling like, oh, I live in a, there I go with my fantasy world idealism and shit. But that's also part of what America used to be when it was in a more thriving state. And for examples like Mexico, it's like, okay, well, there is I don't know I don't know a lot of the good parts of Mexico, but assuming that president knows what he's talking about, then here's some more evidence that, what's the common denominator here? Oh, things have gotten so bad. Well, what was a trait of when it was good? We had, not to say that just, return with a V and just have, just bring back the fucking Reagan era, everything that, let's just, reverse a whole lot of changes that we've made. Let's, women get in the kitchen and, uh, maybe segregation wasn't so bad actually. Maybe there was a purpose to that. Like, not, but there was culture, there was ideals of, even if you actually put in the book a whole lot of like any kind of your praying stuff or whatever, spiritual stuff that's in the book is very agnostic, but there is some sort of reaching, some sort of hoping in something beyond yourself, which I think
yeah,
every hardcore addict gets to that point where, I mean, it just comes with the territory. You're going to get to that point where you're like you're crying out to your maker for one reason or another, and
yeah,
there's no denying that there's um when you're at that level, you're hoping, you're reaching out for something else, meaning there's got to be something else. And if you met that something else, then you'd probably wouldn't find yourself uh missing body parts in a bathtub or something.
yeah. Well, yeah. Listen, I'm very fortunate that I was kind of like a Reddit atheist for a very long time, and um, meth is a bad drug, but it can open you up spiritually sometimes and make you think outside the box and think in a bad way, kind of like make you think that you're communicating with God or that you are a descendant of Jesus or, I mean, you go nuts, but at the same time, it did kind of open me up to like, it made me more open-minded about the possibility that there was something greater out there. from an unhealthy place, just of like pure hallucination and probably brain damage. But once that subsided, it left me kind of permanently open to this thought that like, I've just seen crazy shit on meth that were probably hallucinations, but it really did open up my mind to the possibility of something. And I consider I believe in God, and I'm uh, I would call myself a religious person at this point, but definitely spiritual, but in in a kind of an agnostic way of, I don't label it something, and I try to put that in the book. The book is not like a Christian book or anything. Um, and I think I
But it
make
might
that
sell a lot
pretty
better.
clear.
Just marketing
Well, I
idea.
mean, that's what's so weird about like the marketing is like the publisher is like like a very conservative publisher that publishes primarily Christian books, and they were the only people that would give me like the time of day, and which is funny because the book is like unlike any book they've ever published. Uh,
No, yeah, that's pretty surprising to hear because
yeah,
there's some unflinching shit in there. I've read Christian published uh kind of hardcore shit like um ex-biker gang member biographies and stuff where it'll push the envelope a little bit, but as long as there's like biblical kind of violence is okay, but
yeah,
let's clean up the language and let's make sure every paragraph to reiterate that this is wrong behavior. And uh yeah, no, yours isn't like that. I like how you handled the dialogue a lot and how
yeah.
it just um it reads the way that it's told, the way that it like you can hear the dialogue that's in the book. uh
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. No, and the publisher is super cool. I mean, listen, my publisher is actually a Jewish guy who's like very conservative, and he was actually the publisher of The Bell Curve, which is, a pretty controversial book. But he was like, I don't agree or disagree with The Bell Curve, but I really like interesting controversial books, and yours is a pretty interesting controversial book. And but he's like, obviously we primarily deal in like conservative literature, and a lot of conservative literature happens to be Christian and or Christian based, and he's a cool guy. He took a really big chance on me, and that is very cool. But I just the marketing is so odd now because like they're trying to get me onto like these like Tea Party Christian like podcasts and stuff, and I don't know. I took like a really different route where I was just like, well, I think comedians. I love comedians, and comedians are super like everyone at the table can eat, like will help anybody, like they're not,
yeah,
there's no like limited, like if I help you, that means that I get less or something. There's like less piece of the pie for me. And I just love comedians. So like I started just reaching out to comedians, and that I don't know, that's been like a really wild, like weird path that I took to experiment with marketing. But I did want to just go back to one thing that was like, okay, like I was a homeless guy on Skid Row, and had nothing, and technically I'd never really received, no family gave me a dollar or anything, and the government helped me. But in terms of like getting me into that long-term nonprofit rehab, but I was a homeless man with nothing, and now I wrote a book, and like maybe it will become something, and it's like that is I hope that gives people hope. You can't do that in Belgium,
yeah.
and you can't do that in Ecuador. I mean, but you can do that here. You can be a homeless guy. I was at a homeless shelter. Tyler Perry was at that homeless shelter. Now, I wasn't there at the same time as Tyler Perry, but Tyler Perry was there like 10 years prior. Tyler Perry was a homeless guy. And
I didn't
now
know
I'm
that.
not, yeah, now I'm not like, I've never seen a Tyler Perry movie, but undeniably, he's incredibly successful. I mean, I think he's approaching billionaire status. And love him or hate him, I mean, the guy is talented. I mean, he's made a number of movies that are very successful, and you can do that here. You can do that here. So I hope this book gives people hope. I hope it just gives some people some sense of hope. Like you can still make it here. Um, but also, I would love policy to change to sort of set people up in hopeful situations to achieve some amount of self-sufficiency. And I love what RFK says about how like he wants to like stop corporations from buying single family homes and like assist families in buying houses with like low 3% interest rates. And it's just crazy that neither of the front runners have said shit about that. But
No,
you know,
and not going to anytime soon, probably. But which is why just really I think you're taking the right approach because I think with like the comedians and shit, because comedy is a big uh it's one of the top forms of entertainment right now. A lot of people, whether even people who really fuck with like all of the Marvel shit, they kind of passively enjoy like consume different media, but comedy is the one thing that people still uh really follow. Like they really follow comedians who have their own podcasts, so they listen to them like all the time. They go out and go to a comedy show. So and a lot of the big celebrities and mouthpieces of the moment are comedians. um Shane Gillis, Joe Rogan, they're up there, like they're in their household names. um so I think that's a good route to take, because I think the only way to get to that next step of let's reevaluate some policy and let's get some policy people to pay attention and actually care is to just spread this idea around more, just reignite some kind of hope and culture and people, and sort of uh to use Zoomer language, kind of make it go viral, like make a reignition of hope kind of go viral in order to make it more of a talking issue, and not just so far down the list of priorities that it's just like, nah, we're not thinking about that. We're talking about, well, as of yesterday, maybe gun control or something. I don't know what the next thing
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's going to dominate the news for a long time. But yeah, I mean we're just so heated right now, and people are at each other's throats, and there's like no talk of salute. I mean, I don't know. It'd be really cool if like Trump and Biden just came out together and they were like, "Hey, this motherfucker just got shot. Like, let's all chill, like shake hands." But obviously that's not going to happen. But yeah, like yeah, you're right. Like this just has to like kind of go viral, this sort of idea of like these solutions, and comedians have there's no gatekeeping with comedy anymore. And if you want to, like there is with books sort of, but you can self-publish a book. Um but or if you like want to play sports, it's like you can't just like start a podcast where you show yourself playing football. I mean, you there are like entities that you have to go through, and uh comedy is like the biggest comedians in the world right now are have no one is has like a leash on them in any way, any economic leash. I mean, Shane Gillis, like my publisher had never heard of Shane Gillis, and Shane Gillis is um, rapidly more popular than any. I mean, more people. I would venture that like more people are like listening to these podcasts than like reading the New York Times.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
it's like unbelievable, and because they're like, okay, you have to contact the Wall Street Journal, and it's like, who the fuck reads, I Wall Street Journal reviewed my book and it got 13 comments. Matt McCusker and Shane Gillis talked about my book for 3 minutes and it got thousands of comments. you know I mean, this is insane. That
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
so I mean the Wall Street Journal reviewed my book and no one gives a shit or even knew. But everyone that bought my book and is like messaging me, I'm like, where did you hear about the book? And they're like, I heard Shane and Matt talk about it, you know? And the way that happened was like, I just like DM'd Matt and was like, hey man, I know you wrote a book. Like I wrote a book. And he was like, oh, cool. And I was like, you want to like, I was like, I'd love to like mail it to you or like email you the PDF or whatever. And then he wrote a blurb for it. He was like, I like it. I'll write I was like, will you write a blurb for it? And he wrote a blurb for the back of the back cover, and may have changed the trajectory of my life, because he did that. And
I think that, go ahead.
oh no, that's it. Yeah.
No, I think that, I mean, shit like that is also a testament to like what you can accomplish, even if it's not, going back to earlier where you were saying that, okay, maybe getting them into art isn't the most helpful thing, but like, uh, just more knowledge, more evidence that you can set out to do something, and whether it makes you a lot of money or not, it's something that fulfills your life and it's something that you set out to do and you did accomplish. And having that attitude of pursuing a dream all the way to fruition is exactly the kind of thing that we're trying to inject back into society to liven up the culture. To, you
Yeah.
can go from this to that, you can go from zero to something.
Yeah.
And yeah, not just cynical, jaded, oh, it's all gate kept, the system's rigged, the
Yeah.
the air is poison and the water is rising and it's
Yeah.
not going to matter.
No, absolutely. Listen, you have to, I mean, this was my experience. Like, I just set out these like little, first, the goal was like, get a driver's license, like get my driver's license unsuspended. And then it's like, okay, like get a credit card, like these, and then it was like, write a book. I mean, it just like, and then I just still have goals. I just still keep like trying to complete these goals, and the level of goal can be different for different people, but it's like we are humans. We are the most dynamic thing in existence. Like the dumbest human is a miracle. Can do miraculous things. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's going on, and that we live on this planet, and like, everyone is a fucking miracle. So like, just you have to set out and feel enlivened to achieve things. And I have a friend who I got, well, he's not sober, but like we were in treatment together, and he has HIV, and because he has HIV, like the state is very nice to him, and they like give him housing, and like, so like he's just kind of like handed everything. He's like handed a check and he's handed housing, and I've known him for 7 years now, and like he can't stay clean for more than like 3 or 4 months, and he is like exactly where we both were 7 years ago, and I have an ex-girlfriend whose like parents have money, and they just keep bailing her out and pay for her apartment and get her into fancy rehabs. And we dated uh 6 years ago. We broke up the day that I got sober, actually, and like I stay in touch with her and I talk to her, and it's like she's exactly where she was 6 years ago, and it's just like, I don't know, if you like put a pillow under someone's fall to rock bottom, sometimes it's like you're just going to kind of keep them laying on that pillow at rock bottom. And I know that's like a really harsh attitude, but like, fuck, I would be so fucked if my family was wealthy and just like gave me trips to fancy rehabs. I mean, I would just be where I was when I was 22 still. I really think that. So that's kind of where a little bit more of my harsher, more like traditional conservative attitude comes in. I don't know. I just think that no, I say this in the book, but like no one ever got coddled into putting down the needle, you know. I think that rings true. People don't like when I say that.
Yeah, well, it's coming from another ex addict. I mean, I was on meth and pills for a long for five 5 years, 6 years, 5 or 6 years. I was like just popping fucking whatever and got really into hardcore into smoking meth, eating meth, snorting it. And it was it was fear that broke me out of it. I just started dating my wife at the time, and same time that we're like, I'm really liking this girl and she's like completely different from, just a completely different person than anybody I was around at the time, and just like a real light in my life. And then same time, um I'm in handcuffs facing like big time prison shit. That was like the screeching halt of fuck. I thankfully didn't end up going to prison, but knowing that like that realization that this is all going to be taken away from me, like the glimmer of hope and then having it just completely ripped apart in one moment where I'm like, shit, something needs to um uh change.
Yeah.
That yeah, you can't just keep being allowed to, like you put it, like just be coddled with the needle.
Yeah. No, yeah, and as you stay on the straight and narrow, you earn more and more things that can be lost if you fuck everything up. And that's what I think about my friend who like he knows that if he fucks up, he just goes on a little fun bender for 3 weeks and then like within a month he'll get it straightened out, he'll get his housing back. You know, he'll get a Ryan White bed at a rehab, which is like funding for people with HIV get to like go to rehab from the Ryan White Foundation. And it's sort of kept him stagnant. So I don't know. There's like a lot of attitudes in San Francisco where it's like, okay, these people are like wild on meth and fentanyl and they're just going crazy. And it's like we just need to put them in a studio apartment. And and the studio apartment will give them a sense of like, okay, I'll stop doing fentanyl now. But like, I don't know. I've done fentanyl. I just don't think they're like you know, you can't just like stop doing fentanyl. It's really addictive. It's there's no just like, oh, I have an apartment, like I'll like become an accountant and just like slowly taper off fentanyl. It's like this person is like shitting their pants and like screaming in a
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's, you know, like it's really like I don't know. It's just it's weird when like people that have never done fentanyl think they like know better about policy regarding fentanyl. I don't know. I've done fentanyl. I've been addicted to heroin. Fortunately, like right when I ended my whole heroin thing, fentanyl had just come onto the street. So like I just did fentanyl for like a few months. But it, you know, it's basically heroin, just stronger. Yeah, there's no like reversing that because like it's just you're fucking you got to be like held down to stop doing fentanyl. Uh, yeah, it's weird when people I love it. I love running into people or like going on dates and people are like advocating for like the drug addicts or like or I say the word homeless and they're like, please like use the term houseless. And I'm like, oh, you don't get it. Like I was a fucking homeless guy. Like I can say whatever the fuck I want. And they like try to argue with me and I'm like, I was literally fucking homeless here and like doing fentanyl. And most people are pretty nice to me and will listen to me at that point. But I have had a few people that like don't have the self-awareness to be like, no, but you don't get it. Like, I still understand this problem better than you, former homeless fentanyl guy. Uh, which is, I actually appreciate that because it's like more of an enjoyable, it's more of like an entertaining experience arguing with somebody that is that insane, you know. But it is cool. It's cool giving people that surprise, you know. And I always use the line when they correct me about the homeless versus houseless. I was like, "Would you correct the black person that said that they were black? Would you correct them and say it's actually African American?" You know, and
Right,
that usually
right.
like convinces them right away. Uh, but it's yeah, I have some fun times just interacting with people and sort of debating these issues. Hopefully I've convinced some people. Hopefully the book convinces some people. I mean, and like I said, like people call me like crazy conservative, far right, but if you read the book, it's like it's going to sound I mean, I frankly I think it's like relatively progressive in some areas. It's pretty
Honestly, yeah.
anti-war.
Honestly, yes. I think it's I think that it's beautiful that it is being accepted so much in conservative circles, because it's, to me, that says that if you read it knowing nothing about the publisher, knowing nothing about sort of different interview circuits that you've been on, if you just read it, I think you would assume it's coming from a progressive standpoint. So the
Yeah.
fact that it's so accepted and pushed in these conservative circles means that it's it's just full of approachable, um entertaining, and just natural logical ideas. It's
Yeah.
not, it's not catering to one side or the other. The only thing it's catering to is um understanding and a and a call for uh, empathy and hope.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is interesting that like only conservative circles will talk to me. You know, like CNN won't talk to me. Not yet. I mean, they might, but I'm very critical of Gavin Newsom. So like it's just like so Fox News loves it because like they'll talk to anyone that just doesn't like Gavin Newsom. Now I listen, I consider myself like relatively conservative on some matters. But like you, I'm like this third thing, which is like rare candy. I don't know whatever the
Is
hell
it
that is. Like,
yeah,
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 like I
rare
don't know what
candy
it
is my
is, but it's
politics.
like,
Uh
yeah, it's like this weird thing where it's like I'm not really conservative or liberal. It's just this other thing where I'm just not annoying or something. I don't know. I don't know how to like express
I've
it, but
always told people I have hood politics because
yeah, sure, yeah,
when you're like when you're from the hood, you obviously are familiar with like government assistant programs and like shit
yeah,
that like the sort of the Democrat Party really pushes and everything. But you're also living in situations where guns are necessary and
yeah,
uh you kind of grow up with a different opinion of guns and a different familiarity. Um things like police, probably, if I mean from the hood, you've called the police and you've run from them. So,
yeah,
you kind of get a more complex angle of a lot of that shit.
yeah, yeah. No, it's true, and like I have like I was just at like a dinner with my some of my family who are like very liberal and they're like kind of like upper tier friends were over that were very liberal and they were like saying like, you know, Trump obviously he's not going to win, he's totally fucked. And they just kept going on and I was like, you know, I work at a place where I'm one of the only white people and like everybody's voting for Trump that I work with. And they like gasped. I mean, they were like in astonishment. And they're like, "Wait, you're telling me people that aren't white are like voting for Trump?" And I was like, the only people at my office that aren't are like the white people." You know, I live in the Bay Area, you know, and they're like, "What? Like what the fuck?" And I was like, "Yeah, like they're like, "Why? Like you have to educate them like why?" And I was like, "I think they like want their like grandparents to stop getting robbed." And they were like, Trump won't fix that. And I was like, Trump won't fix that probably, but it's the only way they can say fuck you, basically. It's like the only way they can say fuck you.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
it's
fuck
a step.
you.
I
You guys at this table, fuck you. You know, it's
Yeah.
the only way they can do it. So they were like, I was like, just be prepared. Like the guy might fucking win. You know, you guys are like really cocky right now. And I just want you to be mentally prepared for that. And it was fascinating. So like, yeah, like I it's funny because I have black friends that are like, they're so much smarter than like rich white people in certain ways politically because they're just like, hold on, like fucking groceries are expensive and like I can't get like they like it's just like the same shit where they're like, I'm not gonna go in the woods and like look for a bear, like how like black people don't do that kind of shit, but like white people do. It's they're like look at politics sometimes the same way, and it's like it's just brass tacks shit where they're just like fucking bread is $6 a loaf. It used to be $2 a loaf. What the fuck is going on? Like I at that table I said groceries were really expensive and someone at the I swear to God, someone at that table said groceries have never been cheaper. I swear that was quote
Okay.
for
Yeah,
quote,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is they
No,
know that's not
insane.
true. You know, they know that's not true. It's
Insane. You can't, yeah, no, it's just, it's all fucking delusion. So I do
yeah,
think that is, um, I mean, I can't wait to go and vote for Trump just as a fuck you. And I mean, personally, I've felt slighted by some of his policies because fucking tax
sure.
tariffs being in construction. It's like,
Yeah.
bro, where the fuck yeah, we're just manufacturing all this shit in America. Come on
Yeah.
now. You just
Yeah.
fucked up the lumber industry, dog. Like,
Yeah.
but uh
Yeah, you can't put tariffs before you can't put like the I don't know what the saying is, but like the industry has to be there before you put the tariffs, you know. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And the
But it's
American
yeah,
industry just said, "Oh, y'all, it's how much from Vietnam? Yeah, us too. Free market,
yeah,
bitch."
yeah. No, I know a lot of people that aren't like MAGA that are like now going to vote for Trump, and it's not like they love Trump or that they're like go to the rallies and shit, but like it's so surprising. Like, man, I think a lot of people are going to vote for Trump, you know?
And it is just that I think it's a good step in the right direction. It's just a matter. It's just because I think with his theatrics and with his especially after just getting shot and then jumping up
Yeah,
and
that's
fist
so
pumping
insane.
like a fucking gangster,
Yeah.
like it's that spirit that I think is a step in the right direction. It's really not a policy like how people want to be like, oh, you think he's really going to change anything? No, but
No, but the attitude, just the aura, the spirit of America, you know? Yeah,
yeah,
I get
yeah,
it.
the
Biden does
beginning
not
of
have
it
the
at
spirit
least.
of America.
No, no, he's got the
No,
spirit of a fentanyl abuser.
exactly. He really represents that crew pretty well. I mean, yeah, he looks like he's on fentanyl. It's just I don't know. No one is feeling pot. I don't know. It's just yeah, no, I totally agree. You know, and I think a lot of people feel that, especially people that like don't have a lot of money in their bank account, you know.
That's it.
It's you know, I don't. I
Oh,
mean, I have a book, but I'm telling you, I don't haven't made a dollar yet, and I don't know if I'll make a dollar. I mean, like I don't know, you know.
it's hilarious the people that think you know a lot of people in the book world are going to obviously they're going to from personal experience they're going to understand that statement, but it's insane the amount of assumptions people have around books. They're like, oh, you got a book published, can I borrow $1,000? It's
Yeah.
like what?
Like
Like,
I'm $1,000 and I'm like thousands of dollars in debt because of the book.
yeah,
Like people
yes,
don't
I don't think
understand
you
that. Like, yeah, you don't get now if you're like Hunter Biden, sure, you made some money or whatever, or like Hillary Clinton, like they got huge advances for their book, but like I didn't get an advance. Like I just actually had to invest money into it. And like, yeah, it's just like being on TV. Like I used to live in LA and like you're in like there's just like people that have been on like a main character in Anchorman lived in my neighborhood, just like in a fucking two-bedroom house, like shitty North Hollywood neighborhood. And just because you saw someone on TV doesn't necessarily mean they have like tens of millions of dollars. Um, it's really interesting like that. People just don't have. I lived across the street from the guy from Puddle of Mud.
I I sold dope to one of the dudes. I won't dox which one, but one of the dudes from the circle and from the hugging circle in Fight Club.
Oh, really?
Sold dope to one of those motherfuckers. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I can make an assumption who it is. I won't say, but perhaps he has my namesake. Who knows?
Well, hopefully he reads the book.
I hope he fucking reads the book. No, I hope people I listen, I hope it gets out there and then we can just help each other. Everyone like I like, you know, like I know I owe a lot of this to Rare Candy, you know, and I know that you know, Rare Candy is not the Joe Rogan experience, but you know, to me it's a huge podcast and I discovered it during COVID through like just another podcast. I don't even remember how I got to it, but it's like it's just cool that this is an industry this like whole podcast verse is like let's just help everybody. Let's just keep helping and no, it's not like if I help you, it means I get less. It's just it's very cool that there's like not limited resources in that and very community based and it's a cool thing to be a part of.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I think
Yeah.
uh at the apocalyptic tip of the world, you can either take the doomer pill or you can say, hey, we all need to whoever has good ideas, we need to get them out there. And
Yeah.
you know, if I really fuck with your ideas, then I just want to boost them any way I can. Rising
Yeah.
tides raise all ships kind of shit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I had a couple of a couple of questions, listener
Sure.
questions. Uh just a couple. Saddest memory and coolest memory being on Skid Row.
Saddest memory on Skid Row. I'd say that saddest memory on Skid Row. I mean, obviously like people get stabbed and stuff and seeing all that and having like almost getting stabbed myself and but that's not really sad. I guess the saddest thing I ever saw was there's like a pretty obese homeless lady that would sit in the courtyard of the Midnight Mission, which was like kind of like ground it's like ground zero of Skid Row sort of and they like hand out water and stuff so everyone just kind of congregates there and There's this lady that would just was absolutely insane, like just couldn't there was no like conversation ever with her. It was just she was in a different universe and screaming and like shit coming out of her down her leg all the time. And I forgot what we called her. I mean, people just call her Mama or whatever, but like she's probably in her probably late 50s. And we all knew of her. And then one day I talked to the people at the Midnight Mission. I was like, what is like her story? And they were like, oh, she was a federal judge that someone broke into her house and raped her and her daughters and ended up killing her daughters, but she somehow survived and like just cracked and just like lost her fucking mind. And that was really sad hearing about that and discovering that like, oh, you can like someone can break that hard, you know. And then it also made me realize like, oh shit, like there's like federal judges on Skid Row. There's like Tyler Perry, there's fucking me. There really are all kinds of people here, and everyone sort of has this amazing story. I mean, no one has a boring story that ends up on Skid Row, you know? So I guess that's like a sad, but also kind of like charming story in some ways, I guess. Happiest moment on Skid Row. Um, Happiest moment on Skid Row, I'd have to say, is down and out, had no money, was all fucked up. I found $100 bill, and with it, I bought 15 or no, I bought a like a I forget what they would call it, but like a bat. I bought like bulk heroin basically with it, and like started my empire. my like my like 2 week empire where like I sold heroin and like was living like a king sort of like Skid Row wise. But that was kind of like this weird spiritual thing because I'd just taken a bus like all the way across LA to go shoplift at the CVS in Malibu, and like someone had already shoplifted there, so everything was gone. And I had like $0, was getting dope sick, and I came back to Skid Row and I just like there was like this fence and this like garbage shit, and I just saw a little corner of a green bill, and it was $100 bill, and bought like I don't know like 17 balloons of heroin for $100 and then sold them for $10 each and like made $70 in profit and like started my 2 week adventure until I went to jail. But but or
Oh
just one
yeah,
of the times I
that's
went to
where
jail.
you.
But that's like hope, that was like the most hopeful. It was the happiest I've ever felt in my life, which is an embarrassment. But to
Well,
find
that's
a
I
hundred
can
dollar
I
bill,
can picture the that $100 bill up on the wall of the jail cell, but just like
yeah,
like
like this
like the
is
first dollar of the business, sort of.
exactly, yeah. But it's an embarrassment that that's the happiest moment of my life. But the purest feelings of joy consume you when you're dope sick and you're like just have nowhere to go, and all of a sudden like the powers that be just present you $100 bill. And so yeah, that just finding $5 can change a junkie's life. I mean, you can really, I don't know. So I don't know. I have another one where I was begging for change at the Union Station, and people would like give me $1 once in a while or something, and it was really shitty. And I do this as like a last resort. And I went up to a lady and gave her a sob story, and she said, I won like the lottery or something, or like a scratcher, and I'll give you. She went to the ATM and her limit was $300. She handed me $300.
Oh
That
wow.
was another one of the happiest times I've ever had.
Oh, I bet
Yeah,
that's like you
yeah,
won the lottery,
I did. Yeah, essentially junkie lottery.
the junkie
Yeah,
lottery. Well,
yeah.
I think I'm really grateful for your time coming
Oh yeah, of
on.
course. No, I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I hope everybody checks out this book. Really everybody. And there's so many stories in it. It is a really great balance of problem and solution, and the problems are presented actually in often kind of humorous, real entertaining
Yeah,
ways. I like the whole homeless tip, get a staph infection,
yeah.
and you
Oh,
find
it's very
yourself in
good.
the hospital watching
Yeah,
Price is Right, eating Jello.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's a very valuable lesson if you want to take a bath and just take a break, you know, get a staph infection.
helpful tips in there. Jews befriending Nazis, uh, a
Anyone can
lot
become
of
friends in this world. You'd be
that's it.
surprised.
It's a real hopeful that my same cousin who's just habitually incarcerated, he is a member of the Aryan Brotherhood, and on the outside it's hilarious because all of his friends are black, some Mexican, but like hardly any. Like the only time he's around white people is like around family, and
Yeah.
or if he's dragged to church or something. But uh he's just
Well,
covered
yeah,
in
they
swastika
respect
tattoos and
that.
shit.
It's just because yeah, when you go in there, it's very race based. So it's just like it's not like black people hate the Aryans. It's just like, oh yeah, that's their gang, and then we have our gang, and then the Mexicans have their gang. It's not. It's you. People don't really get that, unless I guess you've been in there. But yeah, like you can still be, well, you're not. I don't know. They did tell, they say they don't date people that are not white, but all of them do date people. They always end up like dating a Mexican or something, and every time.
The complexities of humanity are just they're really on full display with prison shit.
Yeah.
um yeah, thank you for coming on,
Yeah,
and
of course.
everybody
Thanks
go
for
buy
having
the
me on.
book. Where's the
Yeah.
best
Hey,
place to get it?
yeah, just go to Amazon. That actually does happen to be the best place to get it. Search Jared Klickstein, Crooked Smile. It's if you can't afford it, like just DM me or something. I'll send you a PDF. Like I don't care. I think giving the book to someone is, I don't care. Yeah, sure, I lose like a few dollars, but I don't, I just want people to read it. So if you truly can't afford it, reach out to me and I'll send, I won't send you a hard copy because those cost me money, but I'll email you a PDF and just check me out on Twitter. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
everybody be easy.